should I know like all like names every interval in the major scale like instantly? Is it
Yes.
relevant? Okay.
And
Okay.
not just because you need to know that and just be like, okay, that's the fifth of C. It's pointless, but you need that for other stuff. So you need that for chords. You need that to understand what to play on which chord, what sounds each interval create. Yeah, just a bunch of things. I think it's really important to know intervals. Again, especially for chords and for knowing what to play on which chord. If you know intervals, is very helpful. So yeah, if we take, for instance, the major scale as a reference, again, let's take like G major, or actually let's take C major. So every interval in the major scale is major, so that's already easy. So the interval is just basically a distance between two notes. You express that with a number, basically, which corresponds to the number of that note, the scale. That's like an easy hack to figure that out. For instance, C is going to be the root note, then the second note of the scale is the second, the third note of the scale is the third, and so on. As we said, they're all major in the major scale. So that's the major second, major third. Then you have fourth and fifth that are called perfect. So you have perfect fourth, perfect fifth. It's just their name. I don't know. Major sixth, major seventh, an octave. So, for instance, if you know notes on the fretboard, you can easily figure out that if this is the fifth note of the scale, this is G, so G is the fifth of C. Right?
Yeah.
If you want to like get faster at this process of figuring them out, it's just a matter of practicing that. So maybe when you practice the scale, you can ask yourself what interval you're playing. For instance, let's say you're practicing the C major scale. Basically, if you end up on some note on a note, you can first of all figure out what note you're playing. And actually, do you know notes on the fretboard kinda fluently?
Like with E strings, yes, but other strings, yeah, I can like pluck a random fret and say like, yeah, it's definitely that note. So
Same thing. It's just a process that you need to speed up in order to
yeah.
just get more familiar with the instrument. So you can do that with the scale as well. So if you take the C major scale, which is basically C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So no sharp and no flats. While you practice the scale around the fretboard, you can ask yourself, okay, so what notes am I playing? Right, so if obviously the first note of the pattern is going to be C. So that's C, okay, that's D, okay, that's E, and so on. And then you know, for instance, that here you have an octave in between, two frets. Same thing here. Here another octave. So you can memorize octaves to help yourself memorize the position of each note. Does it make sense?
Yeah, and I have a question regarding scales.
Sure.
So we have like a major and minor scale, which is quite easy to build. If you like, say you want to play in Lydian mode, how do you build the scale? Should you like learn another pattern, or you can create like just shifting the first fourth interval, or
Okay,
what's
yeah.
your approach?
So modes, you mean modes, right?
Yeah, like Lydian mode.
If you take the major scale, obviously each mode of the major scale each note of the major scale basically corresponds to a mode. So you're gonna have seven modes for the major scale. The way I approach that is that I'm gonna just play the same scale for each mode. So if you're playing modes of the C major scale, the notes are gonna be for each mode the same notes as the C major scale. The only thing that is going to be different is the function of each note and like the tonal center, so like the context. So let's say I want to play. Sorry, go ahead.
So you're speaking of relative scale. So like C Lydian could be like E major, if I'm not mistaken. So something like this, and you can right. You can use like the relative major or minor scale that you're familiar with, and just change the accent of the root note and right.
Exactly. And if
Okay.
you think, for instance, the relative minor scale, that's basically the Aeolian mode, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the, if you play, if you have C major, that is also A minor, right? Same notes. And in fact, A minor is actually the sixth mode of the C major scale. Aeolian. Aeolian. So it's exactly the same approach. If you want, for instance, Dorian, which is the second mode, you'd have to play the C major scale, but referring to D, which is the second of C. So D becomes the tonal center, therefore the root note, and therefore every interval of the major scale is different now. So D now is the root note, so E is the second, F is the fourth. Basically everything moved, according to the root note. That's another reason why you kind of need to know intervals, because if you know that the sixth of C is A, and you know that the sixth mode is Aeolian, and let's say you want to play Aeolian, you know that that is going to be basically the C major scale, right? Because you're going to do the opposite thought process. And so if you have, like, for instance, let's make another example. If you have C Lydian, as you mentioned before, what major scale would that be?
So Lydian is fourth, right?
Yeah,
Fourth mode of major scale. So like C, B, A should be G minor major, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's could be
Yeah,
counted.
that's the approach that I have. Obviously, now every note of the G major scale has a different function, so I'm gonna play differently. Now the root is C, so kind of want to emphasize that. Um, but the notes that I'm gonna use are gonna be the notes of the G major scale, obviously.
Yeah. Thanks. You helped me a lot. Yeah. Because like different approach that I've heard, like like you're playing in C major and say you want to play C Lydian, and it's like sharp four, and you just like move it the C major scale, which could be more like harder. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. But you also want to know every interval of that mode, because it's gonna help you. Again, another use of intervals. Because if you know that, for instance, the Lydian mode is basically a major scale with the sharp 4. Sharp 4, so you have root, major second, major third, and so far it's like the major scale. But then sharp 4, and then again, like the major scale, so fifth, major sixth, major seventh. So really, the important note, the note that is gonna make that scale sound Lydian, is the sharp 4. And so if you want to emphasize that in your playing, you kind of want to know that the sharp 4 is here. You know what I mean? So you can reach for that and like use that to play like more meaningful phrases, instead of just going up and down the scale. Let's say you want to play something that fits the context a bit more. You kind of want to reach for the right notes, and knowing intervals basically is gonna make you able to reach for the right notes. If that makes sense.